welcome to Greater Good Entrepreneur, where we interview social entrepreneurs, founders of for-profit and not-for-profit businesses that are doing good for the world. Today I'm here with Kim Nace, and Kim is the managing director of the Rich Earth Institute. Is that correct, Kim?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, well, welcome. We're really glad to have you here. I've always been interested in the Rich Earth Institute since the first time I heard the story. Can you start out just by telling us what the Rich Earth Institute is?
Well, the Rich Earth Institute is a nonprofit. We're located in Brattleboro, Vermont, and we are the first community-scale pilot project in the United States recycling human urine to take it back to the land and the soils as a fertilizer.
Recycling human urine. How do you actually, how does one even get to the urine to be able to actually recycle it? Because I know when I generally go, it all, as far as I know, it all gets mixed up into one thing.
It usually goes into water and it gets flushed down a toilet and it goes to a treatment plant or a septic system. But what we do is we collect it and separate it at the source. This is kind of a new technology, a new idea in our whole species. It's happening. A lot of people are thinking about it. And you know, if you separate the urine from the poop at the source, then you can collect the urine, which is full of nutrients. It's got nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium in it, and other trace nutrients. And those are things that are used to grow food. Those are things that are needed in fertilizer and to be an amendment for the soils. So what we do at the Rich Earth Institute is we collect, transport, treat, and apply urine locally.
Okay, so the first question is, how do you even separate those things? Do you literally come into someone's house and install a separate urinal, essentially?
Yes.
Next to or near the toilet that's in someone's home?
Yeah, there's a couple different ways to do it. So for men, it's very easy. You can just use a urinal. In public restrooms where there are already your urinals, it would be a great place to put a tank in the basement or you know, nearby where you could just collect the urine very easily. Men wouldn't have to have any behavior change. Mm-hmm. In a home...
Well, we like that.
You like to not have to have a behavior change? Yes, I'm sure. You know, that's...
Yeah, we like things to be, we need things to be easy for us because we can't think more than one or two steps ahead.
Well, I won't even make a comment on that. But it is different. You know, men and women, they use toilets differently. Men stand up, women sit down. But there's a new invention called a urine diverting toilet. You can get them in a dry toilet for a dry composting toilet or a flush toilet. We don't have those manufactured in the United States yet, but they are made in Europe. They're made in Sweden. We can get them imported here, and you put those in the bathroom. It's actually a porcelain variety, and it doesn't require a lot of change for women. Or
does it replace the current toilet that I have
yes.
in my... Okay, so you'd bring this thing in, literally...
You take out the other one and put this one in, and this one will have, at the front, it has a bowl in the front where the urine collects, and you don't have to flush that. When you pee, you sit down, and men can sit down on this toilet or use a urinal. Then there's a hose that comes from the toilet and it goes into a tank. That's how you can collect it in a very matter-of-fact way in a domestic setting. Nobody has to do anything different than what they usually do, and it works well. What we're doing for the Rich Earth Institute project, this research project, is that we have between 70 and 150 donors in the Brattleboro area. People come onto the project and leave the project, and new people come on. We don't have a really great accurate count right now of exactly who's donating, but we supply them with a 5-gallon container with a funnel on the top of it, and they take these at home and put them in their bathrooms. Some people put them in their bedrooms, especially because it's very nice to not have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. It's very convenient. But so people bring these, they collect their urine, all different kinds of ways people are doing this, but the funnel apparatus works really well. It has a ping pong ball in it, and the urine fills up and then goes down, and the ping pong ball makes a seal at the funnel. So there's no odor. There's no problem with that at all. Okay. And when they're full, people take off the funnel, put a cap on, and they bring them to the urine depot.
Okay, so these are literally just items that sit in someone's bedroom.
Yeah, or the bathroom. Or in their garage if they work outside a lot.
So with these, there's no piping at all. Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, there's
How does it get into that 5-gallon bucket? Is there a separate thing with a separate urinal or something with a hose that goes into it, or I suppose I could just pee in the bucket?
It's not a bucket. It's a 5-gallon closed container. You know the oil containers that people use in restaurants with the large oil.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's just a plastic container. We actually get those for free from several granola making companies around here, and we clean with a little bit of oil in the bottom. We clean that out, and then we supply these clean containers to people.
Okay.
And then we add this funnel apparatus on the top. So it's very simple. It's a portable. It's a portable urinal.
Okay.
And for women,
Nice.
we also supply something called a nun's cap, and it's like a little circular, half circle insert plastic that you can set in a regular toilet, and women can use that to pee and then pick it up and pour it into this portable urinal. We get those. It's a hospital kind of, it's a medical supply.
Okay. All right.
So that's how we get urine.
All right.
We've been
Okay. So the first problem is just the separation. I get how we're going to do that initially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then what happens?
Well, then we collect it and we transport it to our farms. We're involved in 3 farms in the area, and 2 farms we've been applying urine to hay as a fertilizer. We have some USDA funding to do some analysis of the hay yields for that. And then our 3rd farm has been doing a pharmaceutical research work with us. We've been using land out in Westminster to grow lettuce and carrots fertilized with urine, and then track the pharmaceutical residuals in that. We have a large EPA grant that we are just finishing this project, and we've been sending our tissue samples and soil samples and urine samples and water samples out to these labs in Buffalo and Michigan. So
okay.
we're doing all that.
You know what I would like to do actually is we're separating the urine. And you mentioned research projects. So can we back up and talk about just what are these research projects? What are you actually trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish by even doing this?
Okay, so the current paradigm, with where we all live, is where farms import chemical fertilizer.
Yeah.
And they use that to grow food, and then we eat the food, then we buy, we eat the food, then we excrete the food, and the nutrients are all in this chain, and the nutrients go into the human waste out of our bodies through poop and pee. And what happens now is that we just let those nutrients go into water, and then they disperse in our environment. They are not utilized at all. And it's not a closed system. And what we envision is a closed system. And in order to get our society to move away from these water-based flush systems and to capture these nutrients, we have to come up with new technologies and new ways of doing this. For example, the urine diverting flush toilet. We need to have those here, and we need to develop that infrastructure, develop that model of toilet that will actually fit with the U.S. plumbing standards. So there's that piece. So we're looking at those technologies. And then when you have the urine, you want to treat that because it could have pathogens. It's typically pathogen-free, but it could mix with the feces in this special toilet. And so you want to treat it. You have to treat it. We're working with the Department of the Agency of Natural Resources, the Watershed Management Division, and we have permits to do everything we're doing because we want to make it legal everywhere and possible for people to do this. So we're pioneering everything.
So the urine has all the good nutrients.
It's
not the poop, essentially.
You got it. You got it. It's fascinating that the body actually, separates the pathogenic part with the part that's rich in the nutrients that we need for the soil. So
right. And if you heat poop, essentially, it will just go down to like ash, right? So
right.
And it would kill all the bad stuff essentially
Yes,
with
and
the heat. So you could conceivably separate the urine, heat the poop, and then we wouldn't have to have any water, really.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's right. Waterless systems are so critical to the future. It's incredible to me. We use 1.2 trillion gallons of water every year in this country just to flush toilets. And they don't have water in California. I mean, there are places, we're very water rich in New England.
Yeah.
And we're developing these resources here, but they are desperately needed already in the West.
This is what stuns me, is that a place like California, Arizona, Colorado, I'm stunned that they're not embracing this because they have such a huge problem with water, and showering and using the toilet have to be. I mean, I know there's also in terms of residential, and then of course offices as well. I mean, farming is a whole other thing, but in terms of residential water use, if you cut down watering the lawn, which you can do with the right kind of plants in your yard. I lived in Utah for a while, and it was beautiful xeriscaping there. The xeriscaping was incredible, and what I loved about it, it was it was almost maintenance free as well. Which
But yeah, the one thing about what we're doing is we're passionate about the water conservation that can happen. But the other thing people need to realize in New England, where we live, is that when you do flush a toilet, it goes to a treatment plant, but that treatment plant does not have the capacity. Most treatment plants do not have the capacity to remove all the nutrients, and we're polluting our waterways. So if you go to the Great Bay or to Cape Cod or Long Island Sound or the Chesapeake Bay. These are all areas along the East Coast where we have millions and millions of people living. And they have, even though we do use some sewage treatment, we also use septic systems. And the urine and the nutrients has been leaching through the water and into the fields. We have algae blooms and we have fish kills, and we have lots of them. So we have a major, major pollution project, major pollution problem. And if we were able to pull the urine out of the waterways, we could solve that problem very, very quickly. We could solve a great portion of that for much less cost if people would start to use a new kind of toilet.
So huge pollution problems could be solved by basically separating urine from feces.
Yep.
Wow, amazing. So we're going to come back to that.
Okay.
Because I think your project is incredibly interesting, and as someone who does storytelling and content sharing, I would love to just assign a comedian to your whole project.
There's great humor in what we're doing.
Great humor
we love
in
it.
what you're
We love
doing,
that.
absolutely. But I want to learn also about your story. I think you said you're managing director. And really the point of Greater Good Entrepreneur is to talk about the journey that entrepreneurs are on. And entrepreneurs have lots of different projects they can do, how they end up doing the projects they're doing. So can you take us back to sort of, you can take us back as far back as you want to, but what I really want to find out is where was the switch that turned that said, this is the project I'm going to keep working on? Because I'm guessing someone like you has 100 projects you could work on.
Yeah, that's true.
So what is it that sort of lit up this one and kept this one going?
Okay, well, first of all, the very first place where I even began to have any consciousness about toilets and this water issue was at SIT, the School for International Training, where I came after I was a Peace Corps volunteer, and I met my husband there. And he had built his own house up in northern Vermont and used a composting toilet. And so he taught me about that. And for our graduate thesis project, we worked together and created a 10-minute video. You know, when the cameras were this big, you put them on your shoulder and it was VHS. Right. This video was at the Brooks Memorial Library for like 15 years. This was back in 1987 that we met. And so it was called What is a Composting Toilet? And so we did that, and then that just sort of all was on the back burner for many, many years. But I did do this. You know, this was kind of
Pre-YouTube.
It's on YouTube. You can see
it's
it.
It's on YouTube now, but this is about long before YouTube. The web wasn't even around then.
Yeah. My son put this little video up on YouTube, so you could find it there. And I look a lot younger than I do now. But so that time went by, and then we had children, and then I became an elementary school principal, and we went to India, where I was in an international school. And while we were in Chennai in India, which has been in the news lately for having huge floods, we were there. We saw firsthand what it's like in a very crowded, developing country where people don't have toilets. Over 1 million people there in this area had no place to go to the bathroom. And we had a flood and monsoons. And so you can only imagine the disease that's caused there. It's rampant. And so my interest again with sanitation just started to tick, 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 you know. Then I came back to the States and I knew I was ready for a career change. And somehow I got a hold of this book. Someone either passed it on to me or suggested I read it. It was called The Big Necessity by Rose George. And she's a journalist out of London who in 2008 wrote this wonderful audit of the state of sanitation globally. She traveled all around the world, China, Japan. You know, Japan, they have the toilets with the bells and whistles, the ones with the heated seats and the computerized flushing. And in China, you know, they have public toilets where people don't have doors and handles and enclosed spaces. People are have no difficulty with defecating.
Wow.
These are like things we don't know, right? So I read this whole book and I went, she raised all the important critical questions. We really do have a global sanitation crisis because more than 2 billion people have nothing to use, and then people die daily from diarrhea and things that are caused by lack of sanitation. And then here, we think we don't have a problem in this culture and country because we have flush toilets, but we have algae blooms and we're depleting our aquifers, and so we actually do have a problem. This 200-year-old system of flushing. It's passé. Even the Bill Gates Foundation says we need to reinvent the toilet. So I read this book, and I also read another book at the same time. I read a book called Women Touch Half the Sky, or Women Hold Up Half the Sky. And I was really torn. I was thinking, do I want to invest my energies in sanitation, composting toilets specifically, or do I want to work with young women's empowerment. I wanted to maybe go back to Africa and work where they're trying to prevent young women from being married off. And so I read these 2 books, and then I remembered that there was a fellow that lives here that's really into composting toilets. I said, I remember him because we met one time 15 years ago at least at a potluck. And so I thought, well, I'll do a little research on him. I've heard he's designing toilets and working and maintaining people's composting toilets. So his name is Abe Noe Hayes, and I called him up. I said, I'm a non-working principal right now, and I have time. If I could write some grants or spend time with you, and you could take this issue and move it to another level, what would you do? And he was shocked. He was like, "Who are you?" He just like, "Where did you come from?" And
right.
so we started meeting in October, September, October of 2011. I knew that as soon as I made the call to him, boom, we would. I knew for me, I would dive in with both feet, and we would just take off. And that's what happened.
Wow. Women's empowerment, so much sexier than toilets.
Yeah, that's really true.
That's
really true. But I would have, I have some reasons why being in Brattleboro, that's where I need to be right now.
Yeah.
And I'm just taken by this issue. And I knew I would have a lot to learn. I think that's the other piece about why I take risks like this and get fascinated and invested in something. I just wanted to learn a lot, and I knew I would learn a lot.
How long ago was this that you dialed up this person who was local and had a lot of experience? How long ago was that?
This was the end of 2011.
Oh, so fairly recent.
It was pretty recently, yeah. I mean, I can tell you what happened right after that.
So what happened between 1987 and 2011? Were you in school working on other things? What was happening during all that
Well, I had
period?
3 kids.
Okay.
I raised 3 children. I adopted my 3rd child from an orphanage, and we homeschooled for some of that time.
Okay.
I did research for the MacArthur Foundation.
Neat.
I did educational research and did logistics management for collection of data. So I had a little understanding of how those things worked.
Right.
And then I did a 1-year this was after SIT. I did a 1-year program at Keene State College to become in educational leadership,
Okay.
A master's in that, so that I could become a principal. I
Okay.
actually hadn't taught in public schools, although I had taught in Peace Corps and done a lot of teaching.
Right.
So then I worked in Bellows Falls Central Elementary School for 3 years.
Okay.
I loved that a lot. It was a really strong and powerful experience,
Yeah.
and it gave me a lot of confidence. I think becoming a principal gave me a lot of understanding that I do have a lot of leadership, and I understand how change works. I understand social change quite a bit.
Right.
The supervisor I had in India, he said that was one of the compliments he gave me, is that you understand the change process and what it requires to help people make changes.
Right.
And the other thing I really like to do is what I call institutional representation. I like to take a mission and represent that to the public, which is what I think I'm doing right here, right now.
Right.
And that once I understand fully the concepts here that need to be conveyed, then I really enjoy showing people this is where we could head if we put our minds to it.
Right.
And I also really need to interject that I am passionate about sustainable life on this planet. I think that is the absolute key to why I chose that.
Okay.
Right after being a principal. And in fact, as I was ending my time in India as a principal, I felt absolutely committed to the next steps I make with my life. I want to do something that will save the environment and help the environment. And I think we're at an incredibly critical, crazy place.
Right.
And we need to do something.
Yeah, and it just seems like this is such a huge problem that people don't even know exists, right? I mean, and
Well,
the
yeah,
other
that's right.
interesting thing about what you're doing is anytime, I've done a lot of work in energy myself, is where a lot of my work has been, and not unlike what you're doing, it always involves actually the changing of multiple systems, right? So in what you're doing, it's not just about urine and poop, it's about building codes, right? I mean, building codes, I can imagine, is one of the biggest barriers to actually getting done what you need to get done.
Yeah. And guess what? We did something about that already.
Really?
Yes.
What was that?
We were asked with a national team based out of Oregon to be a part of a 1.5 year long process of rewriting plumbing codes. And we did that, and these came out in October this year, with the International Association of Plumbers and Mechanical Officers, the Uniform Plumbing Code now has a supplement for our kind of toilets.
So if I'm a building inspector and a homeowner comes to me and says, I want to install this,
Yeah.
the inspector can say, okay, it's okay because now there's this new supplement. So the standard is still what the standard has been.
Right.
But now at least a homeowner can get it done without having to go to court and get all kinds of variances. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, there are a written document there to point to lead the way, so that that you can show the homeowner, the architect can see it, the plumber, the regulators, everybody can now have it, available.
And this is to install one of these toilets that you were talking about that currently exists in Europe.
Yes, well, actually, these are for dry composting and urine diverting dry composting systems. Now, the flush version, which will still flush the poop away, we don't have that cornered yet, but that's next on our list of work. And it may take another few years to do that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of legal barriers in this country. We have a very strong federal regulations around human waste management, and those are really good. They've been meant to protect people, but even the people who use those on a daily basis also know that what we're doing is logical and sensible, and they're helping us. Our Vermont regulators are working beautifully with us to try to pioneer these new pathways.
Right. Well, and in addition to the plumbing systems, then you've got just the disposal systems. I mean, if this stuff is actually going to get saved, and then at a large scale get converted into whatever it needs to get converted to be fertilizer or whatever else it becomes, you've got a whole nother system there that not just a tiny little piece, but I mean, we have huge regulations around whether it's municipal sewage, municipal sewer system, or septic system.
A septic system,
right?
Yes,
Of course.
septic.
So there's all these rules around septic systems, which basically would change if all of a sudden we didn't have urine going into them, right? I would imagine these would have to change.
Yeah, the gray water systems, they would become gray water systems if we took all of human waste out. But if we just take part of it out, then you can still use your septic system the way it is.
Yeah.
But when you have septic systems that are failing or that are old or need to be redone under the ground, that's $25,000 to $30,000, for people.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money. People have to dig everything up and redo these. If you put in a urine diverting toilet instead and put a tank in there and have it pumped out like we do, we have our septic company, and I just want to make a plug and a voice of gratitude for Best Septic from Westminster, because they have been working with us side by side since 2012. They go around and pump out the urine from the homes that already have tanks in them. So we have some people that are collecting with 55-gallon drum tanks at their homes already.
Oh,
so
really?
we go around, and Best Septic is doing all our hauling from our depot out to our farms, and we're also concentrating the urine. We're working on ways to take the water out of it.
Right.
And so we're just doing a lot of things. We're paving the way.
Right.
We're paving the way, and when enough energy and enough people realize that this has to change, we're going to have answers right here. It's like right here. You want to learn. We know so much already.
Right.
We have acquired and accumulated enough a knowledge base already in 4 years that is really ready. We're ripe for people to get started.
Yeah. Okay, so I find what you do so fascinating, but I still need to get back to sort of the story of the entrepreneur and how.
Right.
So right now we're just at, okay, you finished being a principal, you know this is what you want to do, and I have this vision right now in my mind of like this giant mountain that you have to climb. Because, I mean, not only do you have to financially be able to support your family, but, you're about to take on a system that is, the waste system.
The industry.
The industry. It involves multiple systems and multiple players. So, so now how do you say, okay, I want to actually start something that becomes something that can actually do something for this? Where do you even go? Where do you turn? Do you look for, do you figure out what it is you want to build? I mean, what happened then?
Well, fortunately, I'd had a lot of experience with administrative work and teams and groups of people, and I feel like one of the things I do well is create high-performance working teams. That's what I did in my schools. And so the first thing we did was bring together an advisory board. We actually, in December of 2011, got a group of people, showed them Abe's special design toilet, talked about what we were interested in doing, and started to meet.
Okay.
And so we gathered this group of very hand-selected group of people. And then we met in January again, we met in February, and in March we were ready, we incorporated. I mean, I just said, would you all be willing to be our board of directors? And so we did that first. We incorporated in the state, we applied for a 501c3 in the federal government, and we started reaching out. We wrote letters, asked for people to make personal donations to the project. So that was in 2012. We applied for a USDA grant in 2012.
And at that time, how did you define the project? When you said, if you came to me, and I don't think I was here then.
Yeah.
If you came to me and said, I need a donation, what would I have even been donating to at that time? Because I suspect usually the life cycle of these things takes on 2 or 3 or 5 iterations before they mature.
Right.
So at that point in history, what would I have even been donating to?
You'd have been donating to a research institute,
okay.
a brand new institute that is committed to advance and promote human waste as a resource. And that's what and we point out in our first letters, urine and it has nutrients that are needed on land. And we wanted to close the food nutrient cycle. Now we say complete the food nutrient cycle, but it's the same thing. We want to make a circle there. So that's what we asked people originally. And one of the exciting things about a project like this is you sometimes don't really know exactly where it's going. Like we never, we started doing presentations. We started presenting to people. One of the things that I did right off the bat, which I think is one reason why we've been so successful, is that I figured out who in our local community are the stakeholders in this. And we went straight down to our wastewater treatment plant and talked to all the people that work there. We went to Steve Barrett at the Department of Public Works. We started talking with Chris Campany at Regional Planning. And now we have endorsements from all of these people. And not only did I talk to them, I invited them over. We had lunch together. I cooked big meals for everybody. We had a PowerPoint, and Abe and I started showing people the science. The first step was to show them the science of why this is important, why this is sensible, So, and we've been doing that presentation now for more than 4 years. Abe presented in Chicago at the National WEFTEC Conference. We've been presenting in Boston last March, and we will again this March at the New England Sustainable Energy Alliance Conference. We're going everywhere. We're going to be up in Burlington at a special gathering being brought together at the High Meadows Fund for us. I mean, we just, it's branching out. At first, we were doing a lot of outreach. Now people are calling us. I don't do a whole lot of thinking about outreach. I don't have time. I have calls every day, every other day from all over the country of people who want, we're the only ones still.
So these are people calling you wanting more research done or potentially to get a small program in their community so they can pilot it? Is that where these calls are coming from?
How can I help you? What can we do to get it started here? I'm working with, just before I came here, I'm working with growing spirulina. I did it in India and we used urine. Can you help me get urine? I'm from California. I'm a lawyer. They're not doing anything out here. I've just moved out here from the East Coast, and what can I do to help get this word out to California? So, someone from Colorado. We get visitors constantly. They come to my home. In my home, I have installed the urine diverting dry composting toilet. So I give toilet tours there 3 or 4 times a week. People have come from Ethiopia, and China. They're coming from everywhere.
Oh, you must have to keep your bathroom very clean.
Yes, you got it. It's the nice side effect.
It's a constant cleaning of the bathroom.
Yeah. I want to do I just make another mention that the Rich Earth Institute would not be where it is without the really strong intelligence of Abe Noe Hayes, who is the research director from Putney, Vermont. He was the valedictorian of Brattleboro High School. He hiked the Long Trail when he was 18. He is he went to the College of the Atlantic, which is a very self-motivated kind of student, schooling. And after that, he didn't feel the need or the desire to go for a master's or a PhD. But in the work that I do with him, we converse with people in soil science, biology, agriculture, physics, engineers. We converse with people from a multiple of disciplines. And Abe is well versed in most of them. I mean, he's really, really a gifted person. And so part of what I feel passionate about is that the work I'm doing is enabling his foresight about this issue to become public and to find the people to work with him, because he wouldn't, I don't know who would be working with him yet, but he needs to be working with other people who are strong thinkers around this issue.
Right. So I think that's going to bring us to really my next sort of question. So in 2011, 2012, you get this board of directors, you start raising some money through some fundraising. And then now, is it government grants? Is it universities? What is it that's kind of powering the financial machine that allows you to keep doing it?
Well, I think our biggest accomplishment, our big leap through this whole last 4 years was when we were connected through the National Water Environment Research Foundation with people in Michigan and Virginia Beach. And so then we were all together able to secure EPA funding for this 2-year project in pharmaceutical research. One of the perceived barriers of this, and I think it's a really honest barrier, is when we ingest drugs, they go into the urine. What is that going to do if we use it as fertilizer? Where is it going in the crops? So, you know, people figure, well, we better answer that question before anybody goes any farther in infrastructure development. So that kind of gave the rich earth a big jump and moved us ahead a great deal. And so we've got USDA funding and EPA. So 2 federal, you know, streams of funding have supported us so far. We're at a turning point. You know, we're looking for foundation support. We're looking for philanthropists who are really environmentally, like, they want impact investment. They want to work on a project that is going to have a huge impact. And I don't have any doubt that that's us. You know,
I mean, there's no question. There's no question. The impact someday will be huge. I think that probably, I imagine anyhow, that a lot of the world still needs to even know they have a problem.
Exactly.
Right.
And so we have our work cut out for us.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, if you were to, 2 questions, I guess. If you were to, so now we've got this thing running. We've got some grants going. We've got some, we've got activity. We've got things happening now. So really, the seeds are being planted. You know, if funding was no issue, and you could look out and say, this is what I would love this organization to be doing, and that could be anything, right? That you could be a research institution, you could be producing hardware that you then sell. What is it that your organization would be doing? What would be happening in the world if money were no issue for you?
We would be solving some problems right now, some big ones. We would be working along the eastern seaboard where there's septic problems, where the septic systems are literally leaching into zones where the fish kills are happening. We would like to do pilot projects in every single one of those areas, from Chesapeake Bay all the way up to the Great Bay, New Hampshire. I'd like to have, you know, a project in each of those areas where we would be collecting 10,000 gallons of urine, either in a public facility or in homes. You know, and then reusing that, processing that urine. They would be basically replicating what we've already done here, demonstrating it there, and then as these were successful, we would be able to take off, and it would be implemented more and more. I'd like, you know, we just, you know, put together a spreadsheet for ourselves of some of the specific projects we want to do here in the next year. One is that we want to create a new version of our pasteurizer. We have a pasteurizer, but we already know what the next version is going to be. We want to build a nitrification reactor. Abe worked in Switzerland last summer, visited the place where they're doing a whole lot of research like this. The kind of the center, the hub, the global hub of some of this research is happening there. So we want to do that. We want to work a lot on urine treatment methods. We want to work with using biochar to transform the urine into a different product. We want to work with ash. There's a lot of different product development we would like to do. So we have a lot of directions we could go, and you know, we're not just like choosing one. We're looking at what comes our direction. You know,
Right.
We've put a lot out, and lots, like the call I had before here. This could be another big step for us.
Yeah, well, I think it's true of a lot of sort of I'm not going to call it fledgling because you've been around for a few years now, but
emerging. We're
well,
yeah,
it's as if we're
call
still
us fledgling.
Yeah. Well, it's as if you need to find. I mean, because you still got to get money to make the thing work, right? You need to figure out where the market is.
Yeah.
Right. We have what we want our vision to be, but at some level it needs to match the market, which for you, I would imagine, is figuring out what problems municipalities identify, and then you know, getting your message into that, because I would imagine people in the Chesapeake Bay aren't sitting around going, "I wish our urine was separated." They're sitting around thinking, "I wish our water wasn't so screwed up."
They are thinking that, and another thing that's become a really big issue in the country is agricultural runoff, and so the phosphorus and the fertilizers that are going into these waterways. That's a really huge problem, and it's been easier for everybody to focus on. It's the farm's fault, and we're gonna solve it with the farms, because we're still just not ready to look at human sanitation issues. We're not ready. People aren't. But the truth is, you're right. People don't know that urine is a fertilizer. They don't think of this. We have been really socialized with a flush toilet, so that flushing it away, and we also know there's no away. So
Right.
we do have our work cut out for us, in terms of continuing the education. But our reach has gotten really far, even just for the small group that we are here in Vermont. Vermont's such a small state. But we were in USA Today a couple of weeks ago.
Really?
Yes, we were, and we've had we've been in the National Geographic online and the Salt online, and we've done a lot of different interviews with people, and
Right.
so the
Right.
word is getting out. And what's fun is when you first start to talk to people and they go, "It is? Like urine is a fertilizer?" It's a big stunning thing.
Right.
So if the majority of what we are able to accomplish as an organization is to raise that awareness, we will still have done an important job.
Cool.
I would like to develop these tools and technologies. I know we have the capacity to do the development of this infrastructure.
Right.
I'm confident of that.
So I guess lastly, sort of, what is next? Is it out there finding out what the next grant's available that can meet your mission? Sort of if you look out a year or two or three, kind of, what's next for the Rich Earth Institute? Where are you hoping to go in the next couple of years?
Well, we are hoping to find a fiscal person, or a philanthropist, or a very far-thinking person who recognizes the capacity that we have, and that can say, yeah, well, this might not be something that's going to happen in 5 years, but if we do what they're doing now, in 20 years, we won't have to build so many treatment plants or upgrade the treatment plants that we have, or we won't have to keep digging underground and pulling up all these pipes. We want to put $298 billion into water and wastewater infrastructure in this country. That's what Obama is trying to set aside, this amount of money. That's an enormous amount of money.
Right.
A piece of that money, at this point in time, should be going to this kind of research and this kind of product technical development.
Right.
So I think the government needs to get involved in it. I did hear from a colleague in Africa. I have people from around the world that do write to us that President Obama visited their project when he was in Kenya last year, and it was a urine diversion project. So I think our president might know a little bit about it. Our future, one of the gubernatorial candidates in Vermont has been to visit our site. So yeah,
Right.
so we need that. We need that foundation, and we are not sure whether it's where the financial source is going to come from. Whether it's going to be a venture capitalist, somebody who wants to put in some money, because I do believe that this will tip to where there will be a way for someone to earn back from this, because it's an infrastructure. It's products.
Oh yeah, one of these days Bechtel will be in there, right?
That's right.
It's always a sad day in a weird way when what you've been fighting for becomes so popular that the money comes in.
Yeah. No, I do
because it's
understand
like
that.
I mean you need it, you want it, because
Right.
you want regular society to be understanding that, and yet and then you go, oh, those guys that I didn't like, now they're going to make all that money off of that. But that's just part of how it works.
It's
That's
part
when
of
you
how
know
it
you've
works.
gotten successful.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all. And I do want to also just say that last August, we did something, we had no funding for it, but we did it anyway. And none of the people that came had money to do it either. That was an all self kind of perpetuating thing. But we gathered all the people in the United States who were working on this in laboratories from Florida, California, Michigan, New Hampshire, Maine. Someone from Switzerland came, and we had the first urine diversion summit. It was just
Nice.
a one-day event, and we piggybacked on a conference that a lot of them were going to in Boston. But they came out, and we all met each other. We all said, "Oh, and this is what you're doing, and this is what you're doing." And so we're actually talking tomorrow with a woman who's going to help us organize the second one. We're expecting to have 40 or 50 people next year.
Nice.
To bring
Right.
everybody together, because we're not alone.
Right.
So we're the
Right.
entrepreneurs. We are spearheading a great deal of it, but
Yeah.
we have supporters
Cool.
in the academic environment for
Cool.
sure.
I love it. I love it. All right.
I would like to say something else if you want to, I know this show is about entrepreneurs, and I think that something that really matters to me is that this is a risk I've taken, and it's a big risk. It has put my personal economics on the line a lot. And I feel like this is the kind of sacrifice that people who really who have an idea, should be willing to try to make. You know, I would say this to any young person, especially. I work with a lot of young people in this, and young people have very little financial security in their life these days. You know, they have huge college loans to pay and very little opportunity. And I just would like to give that role model for them, that you do what's right and you do what your values say is the right thing to do. Our economic system is really doing it's not serving them. It's not serving a whole lot of people, and so I think that it's important for people to take risks. Do what you can do.
I really appreciate sort of that level of candor in talking about the personal risk, because I think that's one of the things that most entrepreneurs don't like to talk about. Usually when we read any entrepreneur story, even if it's a social entrepreneur that's done some sort of interesting banking thing or whatever, by the time it gets to popular press, it's a polished story. And there's always so much more than the polished story, and that's what I really want to get to here, is kind of the meat and potatoes of waking up at 1 in the morning or 3 in the morning, and just like, I've had plenty of times where your eyes like pop open. It seems like your eyes like pop open and you're like, oh my God, how am I going to pay that bill this month?
How am I going to
get that person paid? Or I brought in somebody to do this really important job for the mission, but the money hasn't come in yet. Or worse yet, if there's issues around just paying the monthly bills, it can be amazing. So it's a very hard road. And yet
you can get discouraged.
You can get discouraged, but I appreciate you sort of talking about what it took you to get there. Yeah. Because that's, and yet I think there's some part of the population, we just can't help it. We just keep going back.
Well, I also think that people get old too. And I saw this in India several times, which I think you might find interesting. In India, there's a lot of people men in particular, who make these big business careers, and then somewhere in their 50s or 60s, they just stop and they give their money away and they go work on something that's for all the people. And I think I think when you get to a certain age in your life too, I think you have to say, this is it. Like, do I want to go and do something that I don't enjoy, or doesn't have a meaning to me, or doesn't have a meaning in my life or in the world, or am I going to just do what feels right? Yeah.
So it's really interesting. I did some work at the Harvard Social Entrepreneurs Conference 2 years ago, where I had some facilitation there and a few other things. And one of the big conversations was that conference is actually put on by Harvard MBA students. And one of the interesting things that was happening was, your Harvard MBA students, the world is their oyster, of course. And there were several people that were saying, I want to go make my $50 million first, then I'm going to go do this. Then I'm going to go do the thing that's good for the world. And there was a whole other sort of cohort that was saying, why wait? You could be dead by then, right? Now,
that's right.
There's a lot of different ways to sort of skin that cat.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
But it was an incredible conversation to be having when the room is full of everything from younger people that had started socially conscious organizations to socially conscious investors that are on Wall Street with millions of dollars to move around, to the young MBA students. And I mean, literally everybody in the room kind of having that conversation. It was an incredible conversation to be having.
That's terrific.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. Anything else you'd like to tell us before we close? I
really appreciate the opportunity to tell my story. And, it's been an interesting journey. And I have a lot of people standing behind me saying, don't quit. I think sometimes I don't want to keep doing this. I do wake up every day thinking about it. That's one of the things that it takes to make change in the world and social change, to have who's going to wake up every morning and keep thinking about this issue. Well, I've signed up for thinking about the toilet thing. I've signed up for that. And I sometimes say I'm going to quit because I just like to, take a deep breath and stuff. But I have a bunch of cheerleaders saying, we want you to keep going. I have someone that cooks food for me and brings it to my home so that I can keep going, which I think is just a delightful gift. I feel very warm and
well, I must say your passion, as I sit here, is infectious.
Good.
It really is. It's amazing. Good. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that's our inaugural of Greater Good Social Entrepreneur. Thank you for being here. Kim Nace, thank you for being here with us. It's been great, and we will see you next time.